Well, hi, Lori Jane. It's so nice to meet you. And I wanted to thank you so very much for coming in here and allowing me to talk to you and do an interview because you have such an amazing story. I had viewed a video that you had done on your channel and was just amazed. You did such a great job. And I so wanted to talk to you and share your story with my viewers because I know that it would really help a lot of them. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it to you and let you tell me all about yourself and like why and when you became a Jehovah's Witness and why you chose to be a pioneer and then what happened.
Okay. Well, first of all, I was so tickled when you asked if I wanted to do an interview because I adore you. You were one of my very first channels of exjws with faith. I was finding a lot of people out there without faith, and they helped me a lot too, you know, as far as seeing things in the organization that I was seeing and confirming it. But I definitely still believed in God, and I just needed place to go, and fortunately I found your channel, and I love listening to you. You're so encouraging at the end about you know, accepting Jesus, and I thought that was really good, so thank you for having me. Let's see, I was not brought up religious. I didn't have any faith. I started to become aware of needing, you know, being, I guess, aware of your conscious need in my 20s. I got married right out of college to a redneck from Virginia, West Virginia. And there was a lot of faith in the hospital where I worked at. People talked about God, and it was very different than where I grew up in upstate New York. I just did not experience that same thing. So I knew there was something I was missing. And I just started to interview people. I would ask them about faith. My then husband's grandmother had a big cross on the wall, and I would ask her, what did that mean? Why did you have it on the wall? I talked to people at work. I got invited to like a born again kind of meeting, and it was very nice. The people were very sweet, but I felt like they were talking another language, you know? Right. And afterwards, I think I was like 23, the girl gave me a ride home, and she asked me what I thought. I said it was very nice. And she said, well, you know, do you want to accept Christ as your savior? And I'm like, well, yeah. And so right then and there, she said a prayer. And she said, like, congratulations, you're saved. And I was like, oh, wow. What happened?
Right. You accepted somebody you didn't even know.
Well, yeah. But, you know, so that was my first experiences. And then I ended up getting divorced, and I moved away from West Virginia to where I used to live in upstate New York. And, you know, I carried with me this desire to want to know more about him, but I felt kind of caught in a lifestyle with my friends that I knew from college that I, you know, lived near. I became roommates with one of them, and every weekend was going out drinking and, you know, all the partying stuff. And, you know, the next day I'd always wake up feeling kind of guilty, like, but I look around and they didn't seem to be struggling like me. Like, why am I feeling this way? Right. So, and I didn't share this on the other interview I did, but I so much wanted to study the Bible and really find answers that I signed up to join the Air Force. I was an occupational therapist, and I could go in as an officer. And I felt like I had to get away from my lifestyle and sequester myself. And I said, I won't make any friends, and I'll just study the Bible for the time that I'm in the military. And I was going to go to Wiesbaden, Germany, and I was really close to going. And I remember the recruiter said, well, you'll probably meet some guy, and then, you know, you're going to call me up and tell me, you know, you changed your mind. Because it was some sort of a contract where you could change your mind, and there was like so many months before it was actually going to happen. So in that time, I did meet my now husband, and he was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses. So he started to tell me things without saying Jehovah's Witness. He never even said Jehovah. And he taught me a lot. We had lots of conversations, some 5-hour marathon conversations. And that was back in the day before there was unlimited long distance.
Let me just ask you, do you think he intentionally did not mention Jehovah, or was it an oversight? Yeah.
No, it was intentional. Yeah. It was intentional because he he didn't want me to get distracted by that. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, one of those marathon conversations, he slipped and he said Jehovah.
Okay.
And I'm like, Jehovah, that's that weird religion. And then I pressed him, like, and then he admitted he had been studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, and a lot of the scriptures he was sharing with me came from, it wasn't the reasoning book, it was that green one, I don't know, but it was like the reasoning book, like where you would look up any topic and you could find corresponding scriptures.
Right.
And then he sent me like a box of publications, Watchtower's books. And I set out to save him from the Jehovah's Witnesses. Had there been internet, I probably would have been successful. But back then, I didn't even have a cell phone yet. And I didn't have a cell phone until my 30s. So I had to go to the library. And my roommate at the time was like, it's the librarian again. Your books came in on interlibrary loan because, you know, they didn't have those kind of books, but they could go get them. And, you know, I'll focus on two things that convinced me. One was the sleep of the dead, that when you die, you're asleep awaiting the resurrection. That made a lot of sense to me because my stepbrother had died when he was 12 in a fire. And that's what really made me start asking all these people questions about the Bible and God, because, you know, just growing up through osmosis from TV shows, you believe everyone goes to heaven, all good dogs go to heaven, right? Then there's this general concept of God. And so I'm like, well, if my grandparents are there and he's there, will he always be 12? Is he going to grow up in heaven? Like, you know, you start having questions. And then the other thing was that God did have a personal name. Now, some of the other publications I looked up, they might say it's Yahweh or Jehovah, or, you know, they don't really know the pronunciation, but they all agree that there was a personal name in the Bible. And I thought that was very interesting that in my limited exposure to a few churches, I never heard that. I never heard it on TV on any general show. So that kind of impressed me. And I do think that's a big thing that impresses a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses and makes them think that they're in the truth. But I've soon to learn that there's many religions that use God's name, and talk about it. And it's all over the internet now that we have access. You know, people are definitely using it. And that knowing his name wasn't really so much that he had a personal name, but like his reputation and who he is, what he represents is really what it's about, sharing with other people. So I did call up that recruiter and told him that I had changed my mind, that I wasn't going to be going to Germany.
Wow.
I knew it. What's his name? And I said, Jehovah.
Oh,
he's like, oh. And I told him that I had become a Jehovah's Witness.
Found God.
You know, yeah. So he was like, so that was the end of that. So in a way, I do feel that there was a lot of good that came out of me being a Jehovah's Witness. I don't think it was all bad.
Right.
And that was one of them. It saved me from doing that. Got me to quit smoking cigarettes.
Oh, there you go.
You know, I probably would have been divorced several times over, but, you know, it made me, you know, stick with my spouse. And now we have a really good marriage. So those things I'm grateful about, and ended up adopting 4 wonderful kids, and,
Wow.
you know, kind of gave a structure, you know. But then I started to collect things that they would say, put on the shelf. Like, I never understood birthdays.
Yeah.
Like, what's so bad about a birthday? Recognizing, like, my mom would like, I just want to recognize the day that I gave birth to you. And that was a pretty important day to me because I was her firstborn. And she was, and I can't tell you happy birthday. I'm like, well, Mom, you can say it if you want. But it was like, I really couldn't give her a good reason why. That, you know, I told her the story about the beheading of John. She's like, so?
Right.
That's what they did on his birthday. I'm not going to be doing that on your birthday.
I think my first birthday was when I was 30. That was my first birthday. It was so strange too, because they threw me a surprise party, and I didn't even know how to act. I don't even know what to say, you know, but it was wonderful.
That's good, and you deserve it. You know, and it's like, you know, so they said, well, put that up on the shelf. Did they say that? And you're like, whenever you had a problem of understanding something, put it up on the shelf, and Jehovah will explain it later.
Yeah, when I was in, you never had a problem with anything. No, you couldn't. You
Yeah,
weren't.
you couldn't express it.
Mm.
Another thing that I had a problem with is I had a really good friend, Anita. I can say her name because she's no longer with us. She passed away from cancer. I'm the type of person that I tend to have one or two really good friends where I'll tell them everything. And then everyone else I'm friendly with, I do anything for them, but I'm not going to give you all the deets,
Exactly.
all my, deep, dark secrets. But Anita was one of those friends. She taught with me in the school that I had, and we would go teach a class remotely, and it took 90 minutes to get there, 90 minutes to get back. So we had a lot of time to talk. But her daughter took my course for medical coding, and she was really good, super bright. And then I needed an assistant in the office. So I hired her. Well, she was disfellowshipped. And no one really said anything. I guess because I didn't really announce it or make a big deal of it. I felt it was my business. Well, we closed that physical school, and I did a virtual school. So I ran everything out of my home. Well, Kelly came and worked for me in my home, which was fine for like a year. And my father was living with me at the time. He wasn't a witness, and he would talk with her, but I would only talk with her about business. I didn't talk about JW stuff. Well, one day the CO was in town, and car group was out, and they needed to use the restroom, and they would normally stop by my house. Well, someone says, "Oh, I don't think we can go there because someone's disfellowshipped there." She's like, "Well, why is there a disfellowship person there?" And they told her the situation. Well, of course, she mentioned it to her CO husband, who talked to the elders. And then before you know it, they're talking to me. And I remember saying, but I looked up all the articles, and I really feel like I'm fine with it. It doesn't bother my conscience. We're not talking about anything spiritual. And they just really insisted that I needed to let her go. And it was really the first time, because I used work to cope. I'm sure people in the congregation thought it was materialistic or whatever, but I felt good at it. And therefore we tend to do things we like. I didn't like field service. I felt it was inefficient. I never got to talk to anybody. Yes, it was nice socializing in the car group, but I couldn't really wait for it to be over. It was very obligatory. But I liked work. And so, but I needed a break. I needed to not be working 60 hours a week. So that's what she gave me, the ability to go to the gym and have a little bit of a life. Well, that was over because I had to let her go. And my father didn't understand because he wasn't a witness. And, it was really hard. And I remember saying, I didn't think she got baptized very young. And I said, that's why I think young people shouldn't get baptized.
Yeah.
And boy, did I get, the what for that,
Wow.
But I learned quick, don't express anything that goes against the norm that everyone else is saying. That was, I had to put that up on the shelf because I really didn't understand it. I still thought that I was fine and didn't bother my conscience, and I didn't feel that it upset God. And if anything, that maybe it could help her come back, right? I had a very good friend whose spouse was very abusive to her, and he was pretty high up. He was presiding overseer, involved in the regional building committee. And she suffers to this day, and it's verbally abusive. And she has I would call it battered wife syndrome.
Wow.
And I remember I thought maybe she was just a unique case. And then, fast forward 30 years, I have a great manager. I have the gift of time now. I'm not having to work 40, 60 hours. I moved to Florida. I pioneer. And finally, I made it a whole year, and I get to go to pioneer school. And I'm in right in the middle of pioneer school. And the brother, wonderful speaker. I really enjoyed him. And, I'm raising my hand and I'm really participating. And I'm thinking, I'm going to pioneer to the end of the system. This is what I'm going to do. And then he's sharing stories, because we were doing a section on women, because most pioneers are women, and how Jehovah values us and this and that. And he mentioned several stories of, you're picturing him as an elder going to pay a shepherding call to help a wife. And I think he relayed 3 different stories, and they are all pretty much, to sum it up, that the wife needed to suck it up, but the angels in Jehovah knew how hard she was working, and they were noticing. So the moral of the story is that you know, there's nothing that can be done if you have an abusive husband who is in the truth. I'm like, what? How can that be? How can they make me let go of a disfellowshipped person, but not do anything about a man who's abusing his wife in the organization? It's not like he was a non-Jehovah's Witness husband. And then I realized my friend wasn't alone. And I had a time period in my marriage where it was similar. But I did something different. I went outside the arrangement and I basically said, I can't stay married to you if you're going to treat me this way. And to his credit, he changed and he's a wonderful husband now. But we're told not to do that.
Right.
But I did, because that is what my instinct told me to do. Or I'd like to now think maybe it was the Holy Spirit telling me what to do. So that went up on the shelf as school is going on. So now my shelf is like really about to break. And then he says, as pioneers, you're looked up to. And therefore you should be up to date on the latest changes, the new light. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I knew there was this change with the Gog and Magog thing. I said, is that what he's talking about? And he goes, so to make sure, go to the Watchtower Library, wol.jw.org, and in the search box, type in beliefs clarified. So I had my iPad connected to internet, so I did it while he's talking. And when it came up, and I, you know, how you go on your iPad like this, and I'm flicking. It was so long. And then they had it, it's so big, they divide it into two groupings by year. So I went to the one, I said, well, let me see most recent going backwards. And I'm looking at all this stuff. I'm like, I don't remember this. Where was I for that? And I just had this overwhelming sensation or feeling like, this isn't right. Yeah, there's something wrong here. And whereas a moment before I was ready to be a pioneer to the end of the system, I was like, I'm done pioneering. I need to figure this out, because my kids were talking about getting baptized. I had one lady that I was studying with and I was trying to get more. And I'm like, who am I to be going out? Like, I know what I'm doing when I didn't even know any of this. So I knew I had to figure out, and my whole countenance fell. Everyone was asking, are you okay? And, you know, like, I'm like, oh, I'm just tired. And I remembered when they took the picture at the end, you know, the picture at the end is supposed to be the big glorifying moment. And I could just see when I look at it that I just was like, I was gone. I was mentally checked out. And I kind of knew what was coming, because I had a friend in my congregation up north that when we had moved, and her and her family, her husband and her adult son, he was college-age son, who was engaged at the time, and the young girl got baptized, just left the congregation. And it was all the whispers, I think they went apostate. And I'm like, all of them? And so, but that was a seed that was planted. Like, how could this really smart family, who was always giving incredibly good answers, just disappear? What happened? What did they learn? Or what was said to them that all of them would go? So,
did you ever find out?
Look into it. Yeah. I actually reached out to her about, I don't know, 2 months ago. And I had wanted to, because I've basically been awoke for a little over a year. It was in August in Pioneer School that I woke up. Took maybe a week of research, and I went from, oh my God, they've lied to me, to, oh my God, I've been in a cult for 30 years.
Yes.
And I did try and text her, and she, this is before, and she didn't really respond, or she didn't give away anything. So this time I texted her, I said, hi, your long lost friend from Florida. No response. And then I said, I wanted to know about your waking up process, because I'm with you, sis. And she types back, she goes, oh my God, call me.
Awesome.
We had a 3-hour conversation, and we're in touch a lot now. And we've renewed that friendship, which is great, because that was one of my missions when I first realized that I wasn't going to be in for much longer, that I had to build up a support network, because I knew it was going to sting when you get, shunned and disfellowshipped. I'm not disfellowshipped currently, but it's coming. I am shunned. Most of the people in the local congregation here have not talked to me. There's maybe been 2 people that have reached out to me, and I think it's only because they don't know. The gossip hasn't reached them.
Right.
But last January, I had gone to Arizona to renew some high school friendships with people who weren't JWs, and they happened to have a church there that I wanted to check out because I had been attending their Wednesday night virtual Bible study. And so I got to meet them in person and actually, have fellowship. So while I was gone, my one friend who I did tell ran into an elder at the grocery store, and they asked her how she was doing. And apparently she started crying because she was worried for me, and told them that I was having doubts about the governing body. Then they got my husband and pinned him down. Well, neither of them told me. So fast forward to July, that's when I finally found out that the elders knew, because one came to the house and just finally came out and asked me, since I wasn't making a move. I hadn't told anybody. I didn't say, you got to hear this. And so they really couldn't say anything. But here I thought I was successfully fading. I wasn't.
Right.
So lesson 1, for those who have not told anybody, really, really think about who you tell. I would just tell your spouse. I would not even tell your closest friend, because there's just something about them thinking they're being loyal to Jehovah. So if you're not ready, do it on your terms. That would be my advice. Do it on your terms. So now that I knew they knew, then I started to think back, well, that's why no one's been reaching out to me. I thought it was because people were busy, but 2 elders are going to tell their wives, hey, you know what?
Right.
Lori's bad association. Well, they're going to tell other people, and I'm sure they're not supposed to, but I'm sure they told them why. Because nobody called me, and ones that would call me all the time, So at any rate, I've already been shunned, but my kids are still talking to some of the local JW kids. And so my only reason for not wanting to get disfellowship, or to delay it, is to be able to talk to the few people that I do care, where they can talk to me and feel it's legal. And I don't want the JW kids, their parents, to say, no, you can't play with Lori's kids anymore, So I've also been building up my kids' friend network in anticipation of this. So it's sad that you can't leave gracefully. Like, I can't imagine going to the Baptist church down the street and then deciding, you know what, I think I'm going to go to this right. other evangelical church, and they're not going to be like, well, we're not talking to you, and if we see you at the store, we're going to turn our back on you. And
it's awful, isn't it?
They don't. It is. It's totally awful. So that's where I'm at currently. I'm extremely happy, content. I wake up excited to greet the day. I'm doing a lot of praying with my kids and teaching them from the Bible. And I came out to them. Let me see. When I came back from Arizona, I was still going to the meetings. I was still going out in service, hating it, but I was doing it in hopes that my husband would wake up and we could fade together and bring the family out together. So the kids didn't know, they knew nothing.
Wow.
And then my stepson was coming to visit. He's grown, and he was getting married. He was bringing his fiance, and it was going to be a surprise to my husband and the kids because my brother-in-law was coming to visit from Holland. So I decided that's when I was going to tell them, because they could at least have their big brother to lean on and to see he's a good person, but he's not a witness. Dad's brother was going to be there with his wife. They're not witnesses, and we love them, kind of thing. And it was a little rough. It was a little rough. They were so well indoctrinated when I told them, they're like, you're going to die in Armageddon, and oh my God, you lied to us all this time. So it was, but now I think they really appreciate that they have a choice. They have freedom. And like today, before they went to school, we did a Bible project video together, talking about, what did we do today? Oh, about the spirit beings. We would never talk about that as Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yet it was. Yet their magazines were filled with it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. So, and then we talk about it, and they're retaining a lot. They're recalling stuff, and I pretty much pray over them every day before they go to school and tell them to be leaders of good instead of followers of bad, and to remember that since they accept Jesus, that his spirit's in them, and pay it forward. Be good to your classmates, and I hope it sticks, but you never know till the end, right?
Well, it's funny
So,
because I can just see the peace on your face. You have a smile on your face. You have a smile in your voice. It's like you're in control of your emotions, even though you just spent 30 years in an evil cult. And you were willing to be a full-time servant, slave, publisher, as a pioneer for them. And in an instant, it's like everything changed for you. I can't imagine you walking out that day of pioneer school and driving home, or whatever your day was like, going to sleep that night and thinking, how can this possibly be? How could I have been lied to and allowed that for 30 years? Because that's what happened to me.
Yeah, it's and for you, I really admire people who were born in.
Yeah.
And you came out how many years ago? 20?
Like 1989, 30? Like more than 30.
So you were coming out when I came in. I was baptized in 89, so that was 30 years ago, yeah. But see, to do that, and you didn't have the internet, you didn't have YouTube.
And nobody.
To me, that's a very courageous person. That now, it's so easy to wake up. Yeah. You just have to look, and that's why all the magazines are don't look. That's what I told my husband. I said, everything they do is to keep people in the organization, not because of faith, but because of fear. Don't look on the internet. They just had a Watchtower yesterday about apostate lies. And I told them, I said, have I told you any lies? When I read the scriptures, all I said is, when I read Matthew and I'm seeing Jesus' words, I feel like he's talking to me, not just to a select group of people. Why would God preserve the Bible? Because we always talk about with the Bible, they've tried to stamp it out. Why would God reserve it for just a remnant of 3,000 people during this age? That doesn't even make the remotest kind of sense. I said, and there's no system of checks and balances. It's just a feeling they get. Even my daughter said, she goes, well, how does one become anointed? I said, it's just a feeling you get. She's like, how do you know they're not lying?
Yeah, true.
That's a kid, I said, exactly. And she goes, well, what if one of them's bad and got in because they lied? I said, exactly. There's no system of checks and balances, and we were talking about the 1975 thing.
Yeah, and I lived through that. I lived through that. I remember that.
It wasn't you thinking, oh, it's got to be 75. And, and I said, there's a prominent speaker with the slogan, stay alive to 75. And that's a prophecy. That's date setting.
Yeah.
And the Bible says, if anyone does that, they're a false prophet. And you do not have to listen to them, because when prophets came on the scene, people were supposed to listen to them. That was like God's spokesperson. So, and they call themselves God's spokesperson. That's a prophet. But then,
and the way you know a true prophet, and I just read this about Samuel, and when before he became King Saul, when his father's donkeys were lost and he was told to go out and find them. And his servant said, let's go to the prophet, an honorable man of God. He will tell us where the donkeys are, so that he can show us the way. The whole point is that to know a true prophet of God is when everything they say comes true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could even give them one pass.
Yeah, that's right.
But
yeah,
multiple.
Yeah.
It's I was interviewed the other day by non-Jehovah's Witness, and they were like trying to understand that. It's kind of funny when it's someone from the outside, but better because you were born in. And I often say I don't have that much skin in the game. I did have 30 years in that I probably could have maybe done some other things in my life, but I'm not leaving a mother or a father or sister or aunts or uncles. And that's really where my heart goes out to people, especially these young ones who are like 17, 18, 19, and they know it's not the truth. And they love their family. They got baptized young because that's what they thought they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
They're stuck. They need to start a life, and they know it means literally giving up everything and everybody they've ever known.
That's right.
And they are very depressed. Some take their life, and that's the fruits of the organization.
You are so right.
That's
my family is 4 generations
good.
Jehovah's Witnesses now. 4 generations.
How many? 4.
4 generations, yeah.
And so you were 5th?
Well, no, I was only 2nd generation, but now my family is going on 4th generation.
Okay.
And it's been since 1989, and I think surely one of them, and I've got elders and presiding overseers and pioneers and missionaries in my family, and I think surely one of them has to have a doubt and wondering where their aunt, whom they've never met, what is she doing? What is she thinking? Why did she leave? Because, see, I formally excommunicated myself, but they would not accept my letter. And it wasn't until they hunted me. I like to say they hunted me down. I've got this stress ball that I'm holding because I have injuries to my hands. So it wasn't until they finally heard some news where I broke the rules that they disfellowshipped me. So my family has no idea what happened and why I left. They've never asked. So. But,
well, I hope that one day soon, when they start to wake up, because there is going to, not that I'm a prophetess, but I really feel something shifting in the world. It could be because I'm new on the scene. It just feels that way to me. But, I have a Exodus support group that I facilitate, and we're getting new ones every week. And a lot of them are waking up because of being on lockdown and unplugging a little bit. Like, even though they have the Zoom meetings, you're unplugged from that. Like, you feel like that's your whole world.
Right.
And it was, you made it your whole world. But once you get out and you realize I can make friends, like I made friends with my hairdresser. She was the first person I told. And I felt so guilty. Like, oh, I'm bringing reproach on Jehovah, And her and I go out to lunch. And then, I started to meet people online. And then I found some exjw Bible studies that I attend. And I can give you the link to my little sheet that I put together for people that I always quote the 2013 Watchtower, where the governing body said that now they are the only ones that are the faithful and discreet slave.
Yeah.
And the 2017 one, where they said they are not inspired nor infallible, and they will make mistakes when it comes to doctrinal matters. And the Australian Royal Commission. Those are kind of the 3, I feel like when people really see that, they'll see the fruits, they'll see the power grab that's happened, the controllingness of it. And then just meetings that I've found that I think would be of interest to exjws that are remote, and that's what's helped me. I plugged in, I'm on WhatsApp all the time, got a lot of friends that way. We share scriptures and thoughts. I don't agree with all of them. They don't agree with me, but we do agree that we still believe in God. We do accept Christ, and we're thoroughly enjoying really putting Christ in his place and elevating him to where the governing body had elevated themselves, and really recognizing him fully. So much so, it's funny, my daughter said, I kind of feel like Daddy's for Jehovah and you're for Jesus. And I said, well, okay, it's not sports.
Yeah.
And if you are for Jesus, you are for Jehovah. Yeah. Because Jehovah said, this is my son. Yeah. Listen to him. And he told us to follow him. And he put him in charge of everything on heaven and in earth. And Jesus said, get under my yoke. It's light. And the yoke of the Watchtower was not light. No. It was burdensome. It was You never felt like you did enough, that you were good enough. And when you had a problem, the solution was go out and service more.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes the solution is help me out with $20,
Yeah.
or, give me a ride to the grocery store, or,
Right.
more practical, but they see that now. And that's what I tell my husband. I said, all I really want for you is for you to enjoy the freedom that I'm feeling. And I don't mean freedom to go do whatever you want, like, oh, I'm going to go, have sex and drugs and rock and roll, I'm still the same good Christian person I was. And I think that's really why my local elders, they don't know what to do with me.
Right.
Because my husband's reporting to them, yeah, she's studying the Bible 2+ hours a day. She's praying a lot more. She's talking about Jehovah a lot more. And she's, teaching the kids about Jehovah and Jesus. What are you going to say? What's my crime? What's the crime, really?
You're right. And it's amazing because, see, now that we're out, we can be whomever we want to be. We could smoke cigarettes. We could do drugs. We could do this. We could do that. You know what? We choose not to. This is who we are.
Right.
We choose to follow the Lord, right? Isn't that amazing?
I was going to share one more story. My mom, who's no longer with me, she remember saying, yeah, but Jehovah's Witnesses are good people. And she looked at me, she goes, Lori, you already were a good person. And now I think back on her saying that, and I wish she was alive now for me to share with her all that's happened and just tell her, sorry, Mom, for all the Mother's Days I missed. And, but at any rate, I'm still a good person. I'm just not loyal to the organization called Jehovah's Witnesses.
That's right. I agree. I'd love to put some links down in the description box. Anything you'd like to share to your videos, groups that you facilitate, because I know people would love to maybe grab onto that to get some hope and truth from you. And I've just enjoyed so much our chat today, and I've enjoyed so much getting to know you, and can't wait to meet you in person, which we'll do in the future. And
yeah, we're not too far away.
Anything else that you'd like to add?
Just for people not to give up hope that are new, finding your channel, and read your Bible like a book. Don't filter it with the Watchtower, and keep praying and listening for the Holy Spirit, and it'll guide you. It's there. We just weren't taught to listen to it. It's been blocked, and don't give up your hope.
We were taught to ignore it for the most part. That intuition, that Holy Spirit leading, we were taught to ignore it. Obey even if it doesn't seem right, right? So, well, thanks so much for joining me today. And I'll put a link to your channel. Like I said, I've got my little stress ball because of my hands, which I keep flashing it up in the screen. I'll put a link to your channel. People would like to take a look at the videos as you make them. And it's been such a joy talking to you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Elaine.
Yeah.
Okay, hon. Bye.
Well,